And something I realized as we started to have more and more kids in our spare room, a lot of people will make the comment like, how do you do this again? Or how do you
Mhm.
give up a kid after you've raised them for 6 months?
Mhm.
And there isn't an easy answer. It's not like, oh, because of this, it's I think what we were made to do. Like whether it was when I was single or when my husband and I were a young couple or a more mature couple, or whether it's the three of us with my daughter now, it's something that's really easy for us. And I think giving is an easy, joyful thing when you're at the heart of giving what you're good at.
It's gonna be a really neat behind the scenes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Because something always magical happens.
Wait, what? Did you just make that up? Hey, it's Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert. Listen each week as I talk with someone new. The topics are as ADD as I am, but they'll inspire you to stay curious and grow. Big thanks to our location sponsor, the UWF Historical Trust.
Hey, Curiositors, it's me, Meredith. So part 1 with Emily Chang set the stage of how the intuitive decision to open up her home to strangers was the beginning of discovering her social legacy. Now, in this episode, she humors my more pragmatic nature with the steps to get there. But I have to tell you, this is my 79th episode, and I'm beginning to see the breadcrumb trail. Nearly every guest I have on the show who seems to be living a version of life that's just custom designed for them kind of fell into that direction of the thing that they're doing. I mean, I can't think of a single guest who's living out their dream as a result of a carefully planned spreadsheet and systematically carved out process. Even the ones with traditional careers moved in that direction because at the end of the day, it felt right. And then there was an opportunity. I know you didn't hit play today to hear the evolution of my midlife crisis, but the fact that all of you tune in each week, it's starting to feel intimate. Like, grab a beer, meet me on the porch. I have a new friend to introduce you to. Also, it's kind of making me think of that game that you played when you were a kid, where you close your eyes, reach out your hands, and you start walking as your friends yell out either cold or warm, warm, or hot, hot. Well, the last year and a half has pretty much been that for me. A drastic departure from the stick-to-itiveness pragmatism that I've created the habit of living by. It's been about as natural as walking backwards, I won't lie. But these 2 conversations with Emily have been confirmation for me to keep at it, to keep moving in the direction of people, places, and experiences that feel warm. So I hope this does that for you too. Maybe you're already living out your social legacy. Maybe you've moved up the corporate ladder or done well in business, but have an empty feeling that you thought reaching your target would fulfill. Or maybe you're like me, awkwardly moving in the direction of your dreams, doing your best to recognize the breadcrumbs. Whatever the case, enjoy this episode. And if it hits home, share it with a friend. Enjoy the show. Welcome to part 2 of my chat with Emily Chang. Part 1 was an introduction to Emily and the origin story of how her spare room became headquarters for her social legacy. Today, she's going to share how you can decipher what your spare room is and why a social legacy is even something worth making time for. So thanks for coming back, Emily.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
So when I was thinking about how the listener might be feeling listening to this, I imagined, working people who have lots of responsibilities and them feeling so inspired by your story and how you live your life, but also having that little voice in the back of their head saying, oh man, this is going to be one more thing for me to do. So can you start by explaining how taking the time to discover your social legacy and then making the commitment to live it out is not another to-do list, but instead something that is life enhancing?
Oh, that's a huge question. Yes. I'm going to start with a conversation that I have all the time with people that I mentor. You work for 10 years, maybe 20 years, and you get to a point where you've kind of achieved what you wanted, whether it's the house, it's the marriage, it's the title, it's the pay, right? And then you get to that point and then, you call Emily and you're like, is this all there is? Like, I kind of thought there'd be more. And I started thinking about this just maybe 3 years ago, It's like, of course, there's more. There's so much more. But how do we help people realize there's more before you get to that point? And then you're super let down. And then you start doing this soul searching, right? I suppose they call it a midlife crisis for a reason. So, how, like pre midlife crisis, do you get to the point of saying midlife is nothing? Like, I'm still on that same upward slope. And I know what that sort of pinnacle is going to look like for me. And that's where I started thinking about how do we articulate this social legacy idea, the idea that we aren't just chasing a title or a pay or a certain representation, whatever that looks like for us, of a successful life. it's like it's like what is the thing we're going to leave behind? In last episode we talked about purpose. I started off there, which is like, what is our purpose? Nobody really says like, God, my life, the reason I was born was to be a marketing director. I mean, maybe they do, but I generally they don't, right? So what were you born to do? I think that's just an interesting question. And it's been asked many times, many ways, by different people who are all very sort of like provocative in a really good way. I think for me, I just started realizing, like, especially for those in the business world, how do we start having that dialogue in an intentional and personal way? I think it comes down to, it's not, let me encourage you to go do something charitable. Let me encourage you to consider what corporate social responsibility looks like in your company. Instead, it's, what were you uniquely made to do? And something I realized as we started to have more and more kids in our spare room, a lot of people will make the comment like, how do you do this again? Or how do you give up a kid after you've raised them for 6 months? And there isn't an easy answer. It's not like, oh, because of this, it's I think what we were made to do. Like, whether it was when I was single, or when my husband and I were a young couple, or a more mature couple, or whether it's the three of us with my daughter now, it's something that's really easy for us. And I think giving is an easy, joyful thing when you're at the heart of giving what you're good at.
That's so true. Yeah. So when you change your mindset of social legacy from obligation to expression, I'm expressing what's inside of me, then it's natural and it's got to come out anyway. And so that there's less of a barrier there to, oh, okay, now I got to do my volunteer thing. And it sounds like it helps prevent a midlife crisis, which is reason enough for me to look into it. So, and the other thing that I loved that you said is that you didn't say this, but you said it, your social legacy is not your job title.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. I think the other part of the answer is, I think life is entropic. So I'm a science nerd, right? Entropy is that things move toward randomness. So if you find that you're working on an assignment, it will take up all the time you allot to it. If you have stuff, it will fill up your room. Life fills what the space that you give it. So if you have a way to integrate, we talk about work-life integration a lot, right? If you have a way to integrate, it's not that, exactly to your point, this is my 1 hour a week that I put toward volunteer time. Instead, it's like, what do I give joyfully? How do I love to do that? And how does that seamlessly weave into the fabric of my life and who I am? And I think, here's a quick little soundbite. When Teo, the kid who we kept the longest and almost adopted, when we gave him to his forever family, I was an emotional mess for about 3 months. Like, people at work would just see me suddenly sit in a meeting and just start crying. And I had the best boss in the world. He'd be like, ignore her, she's fine. Because he knew that I wanted to keep working. And he had asked me one day, he said, how can I help you? How can I help you when you're emotional? I'm like, just ignore me. Something just came to mind and I thought of him, right? I'm okay. And so he would do that. We'd be in a room. He's like, don't look at her. She's fine. Keep going. He was amazing. But I remember coming home one night and I was just crying. And my daughter's like, come on, Mom. And I said, Hun, don't you miss him? Like, do you feel like there's a hole in our lives? Is what I asked her. This was the hardest thing. And she looked at me kind of quizzically and she went, no, because we're like jeggings, because jeggings were like our favorite article of clothing at the time, jeans/leggings. And I was like, how are we like jeggings, Lainey? And she was like, well, Mom, we stretch to fill people who come in our family. And then when they leave, we just go back. And I was like, oh, okay. Frame of reference. Got it.
Oh my gosh.
But I think that's a really good example. We were jeggings. And when you're in the middle of giving what you're made to give, it doesn't feel it, the pain comes from like I miss my son, right? But the giving is incredibly joyful, and you make time for it because life is entropic, and so you create this jar of things that are important to you, and they all mix together in the time and the space that you allot.
Oh, that's so good. And speaking of time, when you were the CMO at Starbucks China, that is when you took a year off to write your book, The Spare Room.
Yes.
Now, from what I
Yeah.
know about Chinese corporate culture, that doesn't really align. So that seems divergent. So, how did you come to the decision that you were going to take a year off in order to write your book?
It wasn't an intentional decision. I would say I'm a very intentional human, least so when it comes to my career. So whenever people are like, "Can you give me career advice?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask because I was pre-med." And I was enrolled in med school, right? And then I ended up at P&G, and I used to have this quote I loved: "Dance to life's rhythms instead of making life march to yours." So I'm a big believer that when you're in the middle of the things that you love to do and you're thriving, that's when you're going to be the most successful. So I've kind of leaned into opportunities. It was not a deliberate career path. I never made the decision to say, let me go work at Apple. It never crossed my mind that they would want me. It never occurred to me that I could go work in hospitality. It wasn't even on my radar. So each opportunity was something that found me, and it turned out to be something that sounded really interesting, where I felt like I could contribute and also learn. And I'm a simple person. It's a simple formula. So what happened was somewhat magical with the book because I didn't suddenly say I'm going to go write it. In fact, probably around 2017, I said, I'm going to start writing down these stories. Like before we forget them, let's write them down because there's some incredible things that we've had the privilege of experiencing. And they've really changed who we are. So I started writing these stories. I was at a dinner party in Shanghai, and somebody sat on the TEDx committee. She's like, God, that'd be a great TEDx talk. So I put the book on the back burner, and we did the full TEDx experience, 9 months
Oh,
of preparation. It's a very
what?
rigorous thing. It's hard. And, these are emotional stories for me. So I think I was a tough speaker to work with, quite honestly. And I afterward thanked them very much. And after the TEDx talk, I kind of just put the book on the back burner. Like I'll write some stories here and there, but I feel like the stories were told. And then it just kept coming up. And so on the weekends, I started allocating in like 2019 and 20. Let me allocate 4 hours every weekend where I'm going to go lock myself away from my beloved family and try to write. And they were super supportive because they love our stories too, and they want to see them, kind of show up on paper. Okay, so that's what I was doing with the book, and just thinking, let's see what happens. I don't If it doesn't turn into a book, it's totally fine. Let's just write down the stories. Maybe we'll just like post it on a website or something. And then one day we're at dinner, and my daughter, long story short, basically says, I'm an American. I've never lived in America. I think I'd like to try it. I also heard you and your girlfriend saying that middle school years are super awkward. I'm going to get glasses and braces. So I don't want to go to another country when I'm awkward. So I kind of want to go now. I was like, okay. She thought it through. It was a reasonable request because she grew up in China. So I was like, well, I joined Starbucks in China, so I don't know if they have opportunities, but let me talk to them, and maybe next year, when you're going into sixth grade, we can find an opportunity. And you can't even make this stuff up. That was on our family weekend when we have dinner together because a lot of times during the weekday I come home late. Within that week, I got a call from the global CMO, and he's like, "Look, I've got this role. It's a 6 month temporary. Would you be willing to consider it?" And I was like, on the spot, basically, yes, I would. And I do have Asian parents, and you're right. Within the Asian culture, it's a little bit untraditional. Not only taking a year off to write a book, but leaving a 2 decade career for a 6 month temporary assignment. Like, what are you thinking? And why are you going to America? My parents are like, what? But I was like, I just had this conversation as a family, and it just magically made itself available. So yes, I'm in, and that's kind of what's always happened. So we went to Seattle and did the 6 month assignment. And then at the end of the 6 months, there wasn't a full-time role because of course I was open to that. I love the company. I love what the brand stands for. And I was like, you know what? It's time to write the book. This is the year. Seattle is gorgeous. We knew it wasn't probably permanent. So even when we first moved, we were like, should we just rent an apartment? We're like, no, we want to give our daughter the full American experience. So, like, short of the apple pie, we bought a beautiful home, much bigger than we needed because we wanted it to be easy to resell with this fabulous view, walking distance to one of the best public schools. Like, she got the full American experience. And for that year, I got a standing desk, just like I have now. My husband made me. And I just looked over this beautiful scene and I wrote the book. And I was like, well, look, let's not define success because that takes the fun out of it. We're just going to write and see what happens, giving myself a year because I told Lainey she could have a full school year, right? And then within that period, like the magic just continued. One day I was like, well, I think I need an agent. I don't even know what that's like. So the other day, my daughter asked me, like, how do you find a drug dealer? She's like, it's illegal. So where does somebody find a drug dealer? I was like, that's a super good question. I have to tell you, like, when I was in high school, people did drugs. I don't know where they got them. Like, honestly, I've never, that's just not my thing. So I had the same feeling about an agent. I was like, where do you get an agent? It's like, where do you score a hit? So
That's amazing.
we ended up, my daughter and I have these great conversations. I love
I mean, between the jeggings and the drug dealer, I mean, I think, yeah. Oh, that's good.
So anyway, like long story short, we ended up finding an agent and then I was like, oh, wow, that's surprising. That's awesome. And then the agent's like, you need a website. So that's why I have this website. And it was the first introspective experience of like, how do I describe who I am in the form of a website that's not just career? Like, who am I as an author? I don't know who I am as an author. So that was really interesting. And then they started to look at publishers and we found this amazing publisher. And they're a dream to work with. You hear about all these nightmare stories. You hear how tough it is to find. Within 1 year, almost to the day, found the agent, got the website up, found an amazing publisher, confirmed and signed the contract, and off we went. And then I had an opportunity to think about what my next job was going to be. Wow. It couldn't have been more perfect.
This is so opposite of what I expected your answers to be, but I'm so delighted because it's challenging my pragmatism. I tend to be so like, okay, robotic, now we go on to the next thing. And thinking, that is, well, honestly, it's a bit of OCD, but that's a different subject for a different day. But I'm really inspired by the value that you not only hold for leaning into your intuition and you basically follow the trails that life leaves you. You are a good listener. Yeah. You listen to Lainey and what she said about, I think I want to go live in America. And you're like, okay, let's, you didn't go, nope, that's not on the agenda. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. And there's so much lesson to learn there. And so I'm probably going to have to play this back and listen to it a couple times to, absorb all of it fully. But for our more pragmatic friends, do you think you can give some tips on how to find the intersection of a fence and offer, or at least how to begin that way of thinking for those who are not used to thinking like that?
Hey everyone, just a quick interruption to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. So I don't have kids, but I also want to tell you about It's Your Magazine. They're a national family-centered publishing company with free parent magazines. They have parenting advice, events, and inspiration. I'm actually in a networking group with the publisher, and this guy is all about family. You can view a free magazine in cities in Texas, Oregon, Washington, and Florida by checking them out at itsyourmagazine.com. And INSEC. So I've always felt iffy about pesticides. Then the mosquitoes got so bad, I would get covered in them from walking from my house to the car. I called INSEC, and to say I've been impressed is an understatement. When the treatment wasn't quite doing it, the owner actually came to my house. He found the breeding sites, identified the species of mosquito, and adjusted my treatment to that species. That's when I found out he's also a beekeeper, and pollinator issues are always top of mind. So if you're in the Florida Panhandle or Gulf Coast of Alabama, give him a call, ensec.net. Now back to the show.
Totally. I mean, I talked about how people were kind of getting to achievement of what they thought was success and then kind of going, is this all there is? What's next? Right. And so I started to think about how to dissect this. So the book, I was advised by my publisher not to use this word. So I do need a better word. And yet I'm going to record it once again. It's sort of like a workbook because I'm a nerd. I think like workbooks. And I spent 11 years building my career at Procter and Gamble, where everything is modeled and systematized in a way that helps people digest and grow. Right. So it's very, designed in that nature. The stories are stories. They're amazing stories. And I felt incredibly humbled to have the chance to meet some of these folks and write their and try and do my best to write their stories. But at the end of every chapter, there's a series of exercises, reflections.
I would
Because what
even
I
call
want
it
is
like a
not just,
journal. It seemed journally to
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's better. I think Debbie will like that better than workbook. Okay, we're moving to journal.
You're
Yes.
welcome,
Debbie,
Debbie.
if you're listening, you can thank Meredith. But that's exactly what it is because I don't want you to read the book and be like, oh, that's cool, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. It's like let me help you if I can share what I know. So chapter 1 is all about how I stumbled upon an offense and like what's your offense? How many people in a room of 10 could raise their hand right away and articulate this is my thing, and what I'm observed is a lot of people do know, but they don't know what to do about it. So for those who don't know, chapter 1 ends with a very it's 1 or 2. It's offense and offer. But anyway, forget the number. Offense is about a very systematic way to identify what is that thing for you that stops you in your tracks above all else, that tells you this isn't right. Somebody has to do something. And if it has to be me, I will, because that's how much it bothers me. So I thought about all these different frameworks and models, and ultimately, the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals felt like the most comprehensive, honestly. I know, like the nerd in me comes out like with every possible answer. So
No,
I
I
use
love
that
that
framework.
because you don't even know how many things that you've mentioned in our two combined episodes so far that have
Yeah.
shown up as a pattern in recently recorded episodes. So my big smile that you're seeing is because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we just talked about this in another episode, like, or what you're mentioning, we just talked about. So
Yeah.
no, it's beautiful. So I'm seeing the breadcrumbs. So continue.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So yeah, we go through the goals, but we don't just like lay them out because they're relatively overarching, and some of them are not very clear in what they mean, right? So I spent a lot of time. I was driving my family crazy at every single meal. I was like, did you know that X percent of blah, 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 blah? Did you know that Y% of people live in poverty? Do you know how many people don't have water? Do you know? And it was really mind opening for me. And I hope that that kind of tangibility helps bring those issues to something very concrete and real to readers. So at the end of that chapter, something will register. And so it's written as, you're right, a journal where you lay out at the end of it, like, okay, this is my thing above everything else that I've just read and reflected on. This is the thing for me. Okay, so that's one. The second thing is, then what do you offer? And people will think about money. Okay, so you want me to make a donation? Maybe. People will think about time. Is it my hour of volunteering that we talked about earlier? People will think about resources like Suitcases for Hope. I always think is such an interesting example. A woman found out that foster children have a tough enough life as it is, but every time they move, they have to carry all their things in a plastic bag, and there's no dignity in that. And everybody's got extra suitcases lying around. So why don't we put those two things together? Like, that's a beautiful example of offense and offer. So offer can be anything. So how do you define what yours is? So again, I kind of built a framework and a series of reflective exercises to think about what your offer is. And it kind of took a lot more pages than really my publisher maybe wanted. But at the end of it, we all agreed, like, at the end of this, you should be able to articulate, here's my offer. Okay, so then chapter 3 is all a series of stories of how people found the intersection of their offense and their offer. And that's what we're calling your social legacy. And so at the end of chapter 3, there's a series of exercises that then says, okay, lay out your offer, lay out your offense. What is that intersection? And it doesn't just say fill in the blank. We try to take people through, like, okay, how do I think about that? What are some questions that I need to be asking myself? What could this look like? And how does it manifest? And what would that desired outcome, actually be and materialize and impact my day-to-day life and the loved ones, because they end up sharing everything that I decide to invest in.
So what you could offer could take on many forms, and you have to
Mhm.
decide which one is best for you and your family.
Yeah, like I'll give one quick example. Tara is one chapter, and her chapter is called A Voice for the Voiceless. She was the lead singer of Kuza for Cirque du Soleil. her voice is phenomenal. I talk to her and I'm just mesmerized. And I'm like, I sound like a cartoon character when I talk to her. She's amazing and elegant and polished. She lends her voice. That's her thing. She has an amazing voice. She's used it all her life. It's her career. And when there was an offense that struck her, she realized that what she has to offer is her voice. So she lends a voice to the voiceless, completely pivoted, left Cirque du Soleil after nearly a decade, and created a new thing. And, not every story means you have to go completely pivoting and doing something completely new. She's just an example of like, wow, you wouldn't think your voice would be your offer, but there it is. And other people, it's their skills, or it is their unique blend of character. Like for me, I think it's probably my unique blend of, I love giving. I think I'm blessed with the gift of hospitality because it's not hard for me. I love having people over. I don't mind the mess. I don't mind opening. I almost took someone's eye out with a champagne bottle last weekend because I was just unwrapping the metal, and I hate things that pop. You know how like Iron Man says he hates to be handed things? I just quoted Marvel. Yes, I did. I hate I hate things that pop. It's like my one, if I had a phobia, that would be it. So I hate opening champagne. So I normally undo the foil and then I hand it to somebody. And the whole thing just exploded as soon as the metal came open, and I lost a year of my life, and I almost killed somebody with the cork. But none of that mess bothers me because it's super joyful to have people in our home. And I'm going to talk about the Dooleys, one of our favorite family friends. Their youngest daughter, she used to come to our house and like lay on the couch and smell it. I love Alicia. I'm like, what's she doing? And Jen's like, she loves your home. It's the smell of home to her.
Oh.
And that, now it's years later, I still think about that because that gives me more joy than anything on my resume, that somebody would come to my home and feel so at home that they want to smell it because they're like, oh, this is comfort for me. And that's actually the intersection of my social legacy. Oh, I didn't plan that, but that was like a super good segue, which is like comfort for the spirit. That's what we call it. We want our spare room to be a comfort for the spirit of all of those who need wellness and time to heal for their own spirit.
Wow. So what people have to offer is probably something they're already doing or
Totally.
that they already have. And it's just using it in a way that is more intentional and purpose filled. I love that. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much for the gift of making these episodes with me. And I encourage anybody that's listening or watching to buy her book. So tell us when the book comes out and how people can buy it, please.
Thank you. So the book comes out on April 6th. It's still kind of bizarre to say that because, imposter syndrome sets in and you're like, wow, like my book? Yeah. Okay. So yes, and it's going to be on Amazon, Walmart.com, Barnes & Noble. If you want to find it, I'll put all the links on my own website, which is social-legacy.com.
That's amazing. Thank you again, Emily. You are a rock star. That's a wrap. Woo!
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. Was that awesome or what? If you feel inspired, but your head is swirling with thoughts, I highly recommend Emily's book, The Spare Room. You can find the link in the episode description and in the Saturday email. If you don't get my emails, you can by texting REAL to 66866. They're like Cliff Notes with clickable links. And if you liked this episode, you will also like the episode about turning thoughts into things with entrepreneur Chad Henderson. That's episode 67. Stay tuned next week to meet the owners of a tech firm to talk about digital security, privacy, and what you're really opting into when you use your favorite apps. See you next week.